Dobrý den, Terre, privyet, guten Morgen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure and honor for me to be here and just tell you something about what's going on in the Czech Republic. But before we start, I will use the opportunity that Professor Philipson is here to tell you a little bit funny story about my, let's say, scientific experiences. Because parallelly to my, let's say, civil service career, I'm a scientist and I wrote several books on Czech-German relations and mainly on the Czech-Sudetendeutschen question in the history. And as I was studying in the 90s, one of the subjects was the history of the Czech-German relations. And the subject was ended by an essay, and we should choose a topic regarding us. And I have decided to apply the theory of language imperialism onto the historical question about coexistence of Czech and Germans in one state. And I failed. And I failed, and the professor just wrote there, "Don't provoke." It was late 90s, so okay, I know that it was quite still a little bit stereotypical thinking about the history and about the role of language in society, and even more in this quite sensitive topic for Czechs. However, I've made a revenge. And the revenge is that last year I published a book which is called Language as a Fetish, Jazyk jako fetish in Czech. And I've made dedication to this professor that he just moved me forward to come much more into depth on the theory of language imperialism and role of, or meta-role of languages in the society. So I just needed to tell you, Mr. Philipson, these small remarks, Okay, dear colleagues, what I'm going to talk about is the language policy in the Czech Republic and language education. And, oh, you don't see probably, okay, so I go here. If we start with the language education, I should mention Johannes Amos Comenius and his work Orbis Sensualium Pictus, the first, let's say, illustrated language book, which was published in 1658 as the first one. And I'm mentioning it not only because Comenius was Czech, not only because Comenius is one of the most famous migrants, I would say, of the Czech countries, but because we are celebrating the anniversary of his birth and of his death in this year, or sorry, in the forthcoming year. So I hope that, let's say, my speech today will be in accordance with the credo of Comenius, omnia sponte fluant absit violentia rebus. Let everything be fluent without violence influence. So I hope that I will fulfill your expectation. Because as Comenius said in the very first chapter, what's the role of education? What's the role of language education? And you see here the Latin German part of Orbis Sensualium Pictus. Komm her, Knabe, lerne klug sein. Was ist das, klug sein? Alles, was nötig ist. Recht verstehen, Recht tun, Recht ausreden. Wer wird mich das lehren? Ich mit Gott. So, what to start with is, of course, the, let's say, history of language perceiving and the language education in the Czech country. I start normally, or let's say in a common way, with the flag of Austria-Hungarian Empire and the role of Czech language as a, let's say, minority language, and the need of German language education as a lingua franca of the Austrian-Germanian Empire, as a language for higher education function regarding Ferguson and so on and so on. Then, of course, the history changed. 1918, the Czechoslovakia was established, and the preferences of language education changed as well. Not anymore German is the lingua franca and language number one, but French, because of the foreign policy of Czechoslovakia, and because of these, let's say, very symbolic value, what foreign language education should play in the common country. Situation was changed 20 years after, with establishing of Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, about the Nazi occupation, and again the role of German language as a majority code for higher language functions. Only for 6 years. Then again, 1945, the situation changed, and the preferred code was Russian, as a thanks to the liberation, as a, let's say again, revenge and political implication of the changes Middle Europe occurred. Last, the same flag, however, not the flag of Czechoslovakia, but of the Czech Republic after 1993 and entering the European Union. What I wanted to tell is that during the history for the Czech country, it was very, very normal that multi-ethnicity and multilingualism is occurring. It was a situation for 100 years that in the Middle Europe, the Czech language, the German language, the Jewish, the Polish are mixed together and are using as a code for, of course, different situations, different functions, but are being mixed in one territory. In about 1945, 1946, 1947, regarding the end of the World War II, we have established, or politicians have established, the mono-national states. And this regard, these mono-national states in the Middle Europe were facing and are facing the big challenges on the foreign language policy. It means this mixture is not anymore natural or normal or automatical, but have a big implication on the not only language policy, but a common policy as well. So, if I come to present, of course, I talk about Professor Philipson, we may focus on the following. In a nowadays Czech Republic, we have the first foreign language on elementary school from the 3rd class. The elementary school in the Czech Republic is for 9 years, so for 6 years and every week 3 hours of foreign language is being taught. Since 2014, the second foreign language on the elementary school was introduced, and it is compulsory on the 7th, 8th and 9th class, or on the 8th and 9th class, it depends on the hours which are dedicated. Now I have, let's say, a little bit provocative question on you, because this, let's say, this measure was or caused an emotions in the Czech Republic. And I would like to ask you if you may assume if this measure was taken positively, welcomed, or negatively as a threat or as a problem. So who thought that this measure of introduction, the second foreign language into the elementary school, was perceived positively? Please, hands up. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and negatively? Much more, yes. You know probably Czechs, or the situation is similar in your countries. It's exactly the situation which was perceived very negatively. The parents were against. They thought, we are going to, let's say, over-educate their children. We are going to overweight the curricula. They thought, you should focus on one foreign language only and it's okay. You should learn one foreign language in a good base, at least on the B1 level, and not to focus on the second one. Not every child is, let's say, gifted to be educated or to get the foreign language acquisition and so on and so on. However, the situation is quite stabilized 5 years after. But sometimes we are still, let's say, facing these questions, although me personally, I think that it's quite natural thing to acquire 2 foreign languages, with exemptions possible. Of course, not every child, not every school is obliged to do so, but in the multilingual Europe, I think it's quite automatically. But, okay, parents thought something different. Maybe you ask what foreign languages are being taught in the Czech Republic. There is a free of choice of foreign languages. It means there is no obligation to choose really concrete language. It's up to the decision of parents and up to the possibilities of schools. However, you may assume the logical way about the development, so elementary school before 2013. The blue line is the relative amount of pupils which are learning English, the red one, German. So you see that in a past, let's say, 15 years, the amount of pupils which are acquiring German language is the half, or was the half, before the entering into the force, this measure of 2 foreign languages acquisition. However, we may feel or we may assume that the preference of English language really, let's say, support the thesis which Professor Philipson presented yesterday. But these are the data till 2012, and after this measure of 2013, we may see that the situation is very, very stable. So English is choosing by 99.5% of pupils in elementary schools, German something like 25%. We have, let's say, under 10% the foreign languages or the foreign language education of French, Russian, and Spanish as a next foreign languages, but they are really in a minimum situation. As I have mentioned, we have this freedom of choice, and this freedom of choice is on the secondary schools as well. So again, the situation is quite similar as it was on the elementary school, but on the secondary school there is an obligation from the first grade, so all 4 years of secondary schools, all students or all pupils are being educated. Again, from the 2003, 2004, the English acquisition goes up from 72% till 92%, and German acquisition goes down from 60 till, let's say, 45%. After 2014, when the second foreign language acquisition was introduced, we have again a stable situation, and you may see that the, let's say, German acquisition is stable as well, and it goes to it stays on 40% of all pupils. So these are just the description data. As I have mentioned, there is a freedom of choice. We may see that this freedom of choice is stable, although we may see, let's say, differences in the Czech foreign policy, which I think is quite known, that at least the president of the republic tries to make more open policy towards Russia, open policy towards China, and so on and so on. But the choice of parents towards acquisition of foreign language is quite stable. So, what's the support by the states? What are we doing on the Ministry of Education to support the foreign language acquisition? I think these measures are the same at all the states, and there is no big difference. So we are trying to support teachers by methodology. We have made a specific website which is based on curricula, where on one place all teachers may find the teaching materials, the framework, education programs, the methodologies, support. So it's on one place, and we are quite proud of this portal. We have introduced, let's say, further teachers' education in this regard, and we are trying now, I will say, a little bit experimental, trying with introducing CLIL into the lower and upper secondary education. I look forward for a discussion on CLIL today, because I would like to get an inspiration from this forum, how it really works in your country. Because now, in the Czech Republic, as I have mentioned, we are trying now to get the best practices of CLIL implementation and to make more visibility about this method of language acquisition. We are using the European Social Fund as well in a very high way to support the language education and to make the language education really valid and up to date. So this was for teachers. What's for pupils? 2 years or 3 years ago, we have introduced the so-called supportive measures. It means every child with specific needs, and it doesn't matter if these are specific needs because of the handicap or specific needs because of the talent, may be provided by supportive measures which are approved by the psychologist and pedagogist councils. And they may, let's say, really suit a concrete measure for concrete needs of pupil. And these supportive measures are, of course, are affecting the language education as well. We have some bilingual secondary schools in the Czech Republic. These are in English, German, Spanish, and Italian. But I have to say these schools are bilingual because regarding the Education Act or Teaching Act, the teaching or the school education in the Czech Republic is in Czech language. And the Czech language is the code where the education, in what the education is being done. So therefore, these bilingual secondary schools, so they are both regarding the Czech law and the German, English, Spanish, Italian law as well. But there are no, let's say, only schools for these languages. As I have mentioned, CLIL is a big challenge for us, and it goes together with this number, 75%. What I mean with this, 75% is the amount of teachers or language teachers which studied language education at the university. So only 3/4 of teachers, of language teachers, have university diploma, master diploma of language education. This is a very low amount regarding the other subjects. In average, we have like 92, 93, 94% of qualified teachers, and only small amount are so-called exemptions, mainly in rural areas where it's not, let's say, possible to get really qualified teachers. But the language teachers are, let's say, attracted to the private sector, to, let's say, other jobs, and therefore we see here a very big problem how to, let's say, maintain good quality of language education. As a government measure, there was a decision that every year 10% of the salary of the teacher's salary will be up to plus 10% every year to the teacher's salaries. Sorry. So the salary question is the topic number one, and really the amount of salary is unprecedentedly high in the Czech Republic nowadays, and it's a very important topic. The second measure, which we decided, it's a little bit more, I would say, more controversial, is the question of the regulation of teaching profession. Because nowadays the teacher's profession is fully regulated. It means only person with the university degree of Faculty of Education, with some exemption, may enter into the school system. We have decided to attract more, let's say, experts from the practice, to open it up. And now the legislation change is in the process, is now in the Legislation Council. And our aim is that it would not be anymore necessary to be master in education to enter the school system, but to be master in a relevant subject with further education in didactics, psychology, and pedagogy. It means we will a little bit deregulate this area and let further education play much more important role than it plays nowadays. We will see what happens. We hope that it will attract more educated teachers or more motivated teachers, mainly to the area of language education, which we see as a very big problem. Okay, this was one point. The second one are foreigners in schools. Let me please mention that the Czech law and the Czech constitution is based on the citizen conception and not on the national conception. This is something which is now of some politicians' aim of criticism. However, me personally, I'm very proud of it. It means in the constitution it is written that the Czech Republic is the country of the citizens of the Czech Republic. There is no mentioning about the nation. So there is not mentioned that the Czech Republic is the country of Czech nation. No, the Czech Republic is country of citizens of the Czech Republic, which of course allows more, let's say, more integration and a little bit more welcomed approach to the language and national minorities than really these very closed, let's say, national centralism. We have 40 national minorities. I've mentioned that we are a monolingual and monoethnical and mononational state. However, we have 40 national minorities which were acknowledged by the state. Acknowledged by the state means that these minorities may get some subsidies for their development, for their culture, for their language support, and so on. But these minorities are, of course, have Czech citizenships. So we are talking about Czech citizens with minorities background. Other number are inhabitants which have no Czech citizenship and are foreigners. The amount of these people is like 5%, so it means 500,000 of inhabitants which are living in the Czech Republic and are not the citizens, and the nationalities of this amount of 500,000, 24% of people of Ukraine, 22% of Slovaks, 12% of Vietnamese, and 8% of Russian. You may see that here is a quite big difference. What does it really mean and how the integration may occur? Because with the Slovak, we have no language barrier. We are not talking about bilingualism. We are talking about parallel bilingualism or parallel exchange of languages, so there is no language barrier. We have quite generous acknowledgement on education in the Czech Republic and Slovak Republic, so the exchange of inhabitants is quite without any problems. Then we have Ukraine and Russia, of course Slavonic languages, however Eastern Slavonic languages, so this integration needs to, let's say, be more active and more proactive, and there should be really specific measures, in contrary to Slovakia. And then we have Vietnamese. The Vietnamese community has a tradition from the 70s and 80s of Czechoslovakia, when the Czechoslovak Republic provided development support to the Republic of Vietnam. And from the time we have this amount of Vietnamese, which now they are, or the second generation, which is now in the productive age, is now almost fully integrated and do speak Czech. So this is another situation and another specificity. Okay, what does it mean in the school education? I will show you a graph which is quite complicated, but I will try to focus on it and to make an explanation. You see different colors. These colors mean a different nationality of foreigners which are in the Czech elementary and secondary school. The blue color are Vietnamese, the green color are Ukrainians, and the orange color are Russian. You may see that the Russian population or Russian pupils in the elementary and secondary school are quite stable. So we have like more than 1,000 pupils in the Czech education system which are of the Russian nationality, and they are quite stable. If you see the blue color, the Vietnamese, they are a little bit changing. So from the elementary schools, they are now moving into the secondary schools. You see the higher amount of the secondary school, you see this curve. And it means that there was a population boom of Vietnamese, like 15 years ago, and now they are going through the education system. But again, the population is stable, only we've taken into account this demographic development. What is a big challenge for education system is the question of integration of Ukrainians and of their children into the elementary schools, because the curve goes up on the primary schools and on the secondary schools as well. So you see that we have more than 3,500 Ukrainians on the elementary schools in the Czech Republic, which is quite a huge amount. And of course, teachers need to face these needs and need a specific training how to tackle not only the education of the Czech language, but as well the education of foreign languages, how to tackle the specificities of culture, and so on and so on. Okay, I have 4 minutes. I will try to go further. It is connected with the Czech policy concerning the foreigner integration. We have two institutes. We have permanent residency and we have citizenship. I think it's similar in all countries which are represented here. Permanent residency in the Czech Republic, there is a necessity to get A1 level in the Czech language, to be allowed to have a permanent residency. There was a huge discussion like 2 weeks ago on the government when I participated, if the language knowledge should be higher to A2 level, or if it's enough to be the A1 level for the permanent residency. Yeah, just to inform you, permanent residency is the, let's say, lowest juristic possibility to stay legally in the country. So you cannot vote, you cannot, let's say, more actively participate in the civic society and so on and so on. But you may stay there legally. Well, after huge discussion, government approved it or decided that since 2021, the Czech language knowledge for permanent residency will be hired to A2 level. These tests are organized centrally by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. So these tests are, let's say, in the hand of state. Concerning the citizenship, there is quite good consensus. The situation is stable. So for the citizenship, we have B1 knowledge acquired. And the so-called society test. Society test means, for example, that we are a republic, that we have 2 chambers of parliament, that we have president in the head, that the Sněžka is the highest mountain, that we have 10 million inhabitants. So really the basic information about the country. Yeah. If you would be more interested, you may visit the website čeština-pro-cizince.cz, where you may find the tests, where you may find some, let's say, language modification and more and further information. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten that the citizenship tests are organized by the ALTE member only, because of the guarantee of the quality of the language test. An ALTE member in the Czech Republic is only the Charles University. So the Charles University organizes it for the whole republic and for all applicants. What is necessary, and I come back to the question of Ukraine, Russian and Vietnamese minority, is that there is no proof of the Czech language knowledge for regional schools. It means if foreigner comes to the Czech Republic, there is an obligation for education of his children, from 6 years till 15 years, yeah? So these 9 years of elementary education. So, but because there is no need to prove the language knowledge of child, it's again next challenge for teachers, how to tackle it, how to work with it, how to integrate the foreigners into the class. So this is very, very specific situation which we are now let's say, facing, and we hope that the forthcoming programming period of the European Structure Fund, we will focus on this topic with a higher intensity. Nevertheless, in the university, the situation is different. University may decide and may approve their own regulation. And what is necessary to be said, that the university education in the Czech language is for free. But the university education in the foreign language in the Czech Republic is to be paid. So therefore, for some universities, the question of foreigners is a question of income and, let's say, higher, money resources, which they may use for other activities. I tell you really openly. I'm not sure if some rector of the Czech Republic is listening to me now. Well, sorry, bad joke. But that's, for example, the situation. I will give you just an example. For example, the medicine faculties. Medicine faculties, or medicine faculty of the Charles University in Prague, approved that the entering level to gain the Czech language education in medicine will be C1. Why? To force the most of the foreigners to study in the English language and to get paid for it. Yeah? However, if you will decide to study, for example, the history on the Faculty of Philosophy, B2 will be sufficient. Yeah? So it's up to the faculties to decide their own regulation and their own rules how the foreign language knowledge will be demanded. Okay, I come back to the citizenship of the Czech Republic. I have some up-to-date data. I think it's logical that the knowledge society test, there is a 99% of success rate, so it's really the basic information of the Czech Republic. But concerning the B1 Czech language test, the success is 78%, which again is not so low. I think it's quite good result for foreigners. But why so big success? If you look to the nationality of the applicants, the most of them are from Ukraine, Russian, and Slovak Republic. So the language barrier is not so high, and the language relativeness is quite close, and therefore they are successful in the language test. If you would be interested, the other countries is Moldavia, Belarus, Vietnam, Poland, and Serbia as the main, let's say, applicants to gain the citizenship of the Czech Republic. Okay, how to conclude? Time's up. I see the red light. Czech Republic is the Middle European country with all what it belongs to the Middle Europe. With this turbulent historical development, we have faced different language policies. We have faced different preparation of foreign language. And therefore, after the Velvet Revolution, we have decided to establish this citizenship conception and not the national one conception, which I still personally very, very appreciate. About the language education, we see different challenges than Estonia, different challenges than Germany, different challenges than the UK. Of course we do, because we have these specificities with the national minorities. So we are tackling the most Slavonic countries and the Vietnamese as a specific group, which are, I think, not the most, let's say, most representative groups in the other countries. It's quite specific. However, the integration is successful because the persons are staying there, are working, are obtaining the citizenship. And from my point of view, it doesn't cause any bigger problems with integration. The more I am surprised, and I will make, again, personal statement, not on behalf of the government, but of my personal, the more it was successful to integrate the Russian, Ukrainians, Vietnamese, I am surprised that the Czech government refused to participate on the migration crisis. Let me please conclude with a Czech phrase or Czech proverb, which says, kolik řečí znáš, tolikrát si člověkem. The more languages you know, the more human being you are. So let me please wish to be the biggest human beings we are, to enrich the European Union and our common integrity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Václav, so much.
Thanks.
And this little gift from our side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.